So the play is called In My Brother's Eyes, which is a dual purpose title because it focuses on his character, which is my character's brother. So it's looking at the situation of them growing up together and what the relationship is now. How does my brother see me in his eyes? So it's a dual kind of purpose title,
Right.
and it's about a man who's disabled, he's in a wheelchair, and his relationships with various family members and how those relationships are strained or
Impacted.
by him being in a wheelchair. How that affects a family.
Yes. So I wrote this play about 3 years ago. I wrote the bare bones in 3 weeks, but essentially, a lot of the stuff you see for handicapped characters on stage or disabled characters, they're either put there for circumstances for limited periods of time, they're either killed off, or they are magically cured. But you never see a disabled character with an ongoing condition, as it were. And I also wanted to discuss parenting of people with disabilities, because you don't see much of that either. So the two of those kind of merge together into one story of a disabled father, and how does that impact not only his life, but his family life, his work life, his kind of how he sees the world, and how he wants his child to see the world through him.
And a disabled son as well.
Yeah.
Because you're not only a father, but you're also a son.
Yes.
And what inspired you to direct it?
Well, he asked. That's the short answer. The long answer would be he asked me to edit. Normally when Justin writes his plays, he does a speech to text, which means that it's the wrong there always. It'll misspell words. It'll use the wrong ones. So I have to edit, go through, and reformat. And by that time, I was already involved enough in it.
No.
But it's not my first time doing a play with Justin.
No.
Justin usually ropes me in one way or another to do his plays with him.
Yes.
I don't think he's done a play that I haven't been a part of.
Official play.
Yeah, so yeah, it just kind of goes hand in hand. If he's doing a play, it means I'm signed up for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a struggle being in a wheelchair, just on an everyday basis, but we don't want to push that. We don't really want to show about all of the struggles that people go through all the time. We want to show more about what they are able to do.
Yes.
That's more what this play is about. It's showing
Seeing you beyond the wheelchair or your disability.
Exactly. See beyond the wheelchair. That's something that Justin really pushes for. Is see me for me, not for what I'm in.
Yes. Because there's always a stigma with the chair too. They think there's some sort of mental delay or like mental issue with the physical issue as well. They go hand in hand. So it's always a lot about proving what you can do, and we just wanted to show for once this is what a disabled parent can do, because how can you learn what's never shown on stage? I would push him in a wheelchair, we're going somewhere, and I have been asked questions about him. And I'm like, he's right here.
Just
ask him. Why are you asking me?
Right.
Like I'm his caretaker or something. And it is very odd the way that people see people in wheelchairs, so we want to try and push away from that.
Yeah.
Show, you know what? He can be a business owner. He can be a dad. He can be a husband. You know, these are things that people are able. He's a person. He's a human being. Why should it matter?
We don't think about those things, right?
No.
Like when you're out, we just sort of like, it doesn't even come to our conscious awareness until you're sort of put in that situation. Yeah. That would be the whole term too, like a handicapped.
Yeah.
Is that offensive to someone in a wheelchair?
To some people it can be. I'm interchangeable. I use disabled, I use handicapped, I use physically challenged. It all depends on the situation.
You don't really care.
I don't really care, just that
people, if people say cripple or whatever, like normally people hate that.
Well,
but
you say cripple and it's a caring
you're
term.
you're not offended by it.
Yeah.
It's that's the thing, is to not acknowledge it at all is just lunacy, right?
It's just as
So you need to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
You know, it's there, but it doesn't need to be everything.
Yeah, it's part of you, but it doesn't define you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your future plans for directing, if any?
Depends on what he writes. Really.
So do you always direct everything he does?
I have, yes.
Yes. Okay.
We're a dynamic duo.
Yeah. So he's the brains, and I'm
Legs.
Yeah,
The
well,
action.
yeah, I do the hard work. I do the leg work. Yeah.
Ba-dum-bum.
Mm-hmm.
So, what has been the biggest challenge for this production?
We've had a lot of challenges with people.
Yeah.
Just people committing and then dropping out. That's been a big issue. Thankfully, we've been able to find lovely people to replace them.
Yes.
But you know, when we're 3 weeks away from a show date and we're losing people, I mean,
Yeah.
we need people to really be invested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And see the vision for what it is.
Yeah, I'd say another big challenge for me, at least, is directing somebody in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like if I want to tell a person who is able-bodied, okay, then you're gonna walk over there, turn and look at them, yell at them, and walk off. I can't do that because that would take 20 seconds on stage for Justin to do all that,
Mm-hmm.
which is far too long. Whereas it would take 2 seconds
Yes.
for an able-bodied person. So I have to really change up the way that Justin is going to move around the stage as Stephen. And, he might even say, what if I do this? And I have to tell him, I don't know, like, it would probably take too long.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had to, like, edit the script, edit the blocking, and do different things just to accommodate the fact that he's in a chair.
And as for me, playing a lead role I've never actually done, and it's very disabled centric. He's kind of like the every guy, and I remember hours upon hours discussing the character and what's this guy's motivation, how does he connect to everyone around him, because we know how everyone interacts with each other, but how does it impact him?
Mm-hmm.
We know that son hates mother, daughter loves father, wife loves
Yeah.
daughter, but we don't know the
Well, that was more of a personal challenge for you.
yeah, that was my biggest challenge, just finding how this everyman fits in the puzzle of the overall story.
The last play that Justin did was called Are You Able? And the main character's name was Abel,
Yes.
and he was in a chair. We cast a guy named Ivan, who was absolutely lovely, but was a guy who went to the gym every day. He was a very handsome fellow. He would 0% was in any way, shape, or form not in perfect condition. He was a prime specimen of a guy, but we put him in a wheelchair, and he did a great job.
Yeah.
But we did try and find somebody in a wheelchair to do the part. We did not find somebody because Justin did not want to be in that one. He was in it, but he had a very small part. That's what he wanted to do for that one.
No, it's because I would have played Abel, but he had dance sequences.
Yes, that's right. We did have moments where Ivan got up out of the chair
In his mind.
and that was his expression. This is what I would do if I could. So yeah, I guess that's why. But Ivan did a great job. We did have to keep telling him, "Don't move your leg. Don't move your leg."
Yeah. Or like a disabled person would not do that. Like that's.
Yeah, a disabled person would not do that. Or
Yeah.
what if I just go over here? And he had a lot of issues too with, no, you don't have time to do that. You're in a chair.
Yeah.
Right before we actually got him in the chair.
Right.
So it's
Because the more people know, the more I guess awareness is shown, and the more acceptance comes in the theater.
yeah, it's because like I've known Justin for close to a decade, and even I sometimes go, oh yeah, I guess crap, I guess I can't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you don't think about these things because you're so used to having legs that work, and having somebody who can't do that. Like I just moved into an apartment. I'm on the 4th floor. He can't come. And I didn't think of that at the time.
Right.
And it's just
I
these
remember-
little things that you don't think of that can really impact you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Even if it's bad.
I'm just grateful for this opportunity to see my first live work on stage. All 3 one-acts are amazing. Bad Hair Day in Las Vegas.
This is a
This is a play. They're all fantastic.
Yeah, and the directors are lovely people.
Yes.
Me included.
Especially you. But I'm biased.
In My Brother's Eyes is a very original work. I can't say as I've seen much that really is like it. There's no central conflict that you could narrow in on. There's no specific message that it's trying to send. It's more like 100 different messages is giving at the same time, but in like a way that makes sense. Like it's very hard play to describe.
But it's positive.
It's just very positive. It makes you think a bit, which is great.
Right.
But yeah, it's a play about what if there was a person who was in a wheelchair who had these kind of family interactions, and it makes you understand that these kind of family actions are probably a lot more common than we think it is.
Mhm.
And how do people in this situation really, interact with the world and each other? Yeah, how do they cope with what they're doing, and do they need to cope?
Right.
That's the thing. People think that people in wheelchairs are always trying to live a normal life, whereas living is normal. You don't need to have any sort of life that makes you normal.